that Tien can grab in his hands. Also, the Maokai with that ultimate, you have such an easy way to disengage or look for the start of fights. This Lux ban, that's a curious one, unless they're concerned that EDG were going to look for maybe a Caitlyn Lux bot combo pairing. That's the only thing that could come to my mind.
Yep, I agree with you. So seems like maybe a call out to that, right? And assume definitely a player in my mind off the top of my head that has logged a fair bit of Caitlyn in the past, and Wink prior as well. Not too afraid of locking in the Lux, even occasionally off the Caitlyn pairings. So yeah, Azir will be our first pick, and we saw the Varus earlier on today in that 1v1.
Yes,
It wasn't
sir.
picked up, of course, in game number 1, but could be locked in here for Light, and it's definitely a comfort pick for him. And we will, I suppose, wait to
They
see
can
whether
do
or not it ends up being flexed. But again, I do anticipate that this Varus will just end up in the bottom side for Light, as a whole bunch of very fun options being cycled through. Almost every single champion, I think, there has a pretty solid matchup into the Azir. But the Ahri will be the thing that's locked in. And I expect then a skirmishing jungler to pair up with that at R3 for Tien, just to ensure that they can secure that strong mid-jungle 2v2 early on.
You know, it might be wishful thinking, but Lee and Ahri 2v2 would be pretty pog to watch, and it would be a return and a call out to, you know, Tien's signature champion that he, you know, ran throughout his Worlds run in 2019 with Fun Plus Phoenix back in the day, and, you know, getting a world skin for himself. But EDG, they're going to slam down the gauntlet for the early game in terms of skirmishing power. Renekton for ZDZ at least will have a little bit of brawling power and always that level 6 power spike with the dominance. And then, of course, Xiaohao wanting to take the reset reins with this Viego. And for me, Jamana, I'm always excited about a team that has Viego on their team, because you can always have a win condition no matter what the game state is like.
Yeah, I do agree, right? You pick up a reset with Viego, it can be absolutely game-changing. So I like that EDG have done that, but they do need Wink on a, you know, a hard primary engager to get fights going, to be able to pick up a target to kill, right?
Yeah.
On the opposite side, though, Weibo go towards the Gnar. I'm actually kind of surprised we're not seeing a Jax here, even though he's had a handful of bans. Viego jungle, Renekton top. The matchup is a little bit annoying in the top side for the first, you know, maybe 6 levels, but afterwards you kind of just chill once you hit Sheen. And Breathe is, of course, no stranger to the Jax, and I feel like it also could have been a pretty nice flex to hold on to. But for the time being, happier to just lean in to that Gnar. And EDG a little bit more, you know, worried about having to deal with some, you know, disengage supports, right? Removing away the Braum yet again. And I feel like if I'm Weibo, you know, you're just picking R5 for Hong, right? You're waiting to see the entire composition, because R4 going to be Tien's jungle. You already see Viego on the opposite side. So I like where Weibo are going, banning away some of these, you know, frustrating-ish, if you're trying to push a lead, bot laners, move into jungle at R4, and then you get a counter pick on R5. The draft is really set up well for them to have a lot of success in the early game. EDG are going to probably have a lot on their plate, but we'll have to see what they actually end up rotating for their bot lane as we move into 4th pick here for Weibo.
Yeah, and the pool has been very, very thinned out for Assum in terms of marksmen that you can take for safety. But I'm also surprised, alongside with you, Jamana, Weibo Gaming are not actually locking in their jungler of choice for Tian. They're just going to go ahead with the Rakan. This gives EDG an opportunity to get their bot lane counter pick of choice now, being able to see the entire bot lane for the side of Weibo Gaming.
I am super surprised by that Rakan pick. Again, jungle blind wasn't actually going to be a thing. It was full information on the top side for Tien, but they're giving him R5, so we'll see what he potentially has in store here, as Misfortune locked in for Assum. Very strong, despite, again, being hammered down a good couple of times this year. And there's that engage I was expecting to come out from EDG through this Nautilus, and it just makes sense. We'll see if he's still as aggressive as he was in game 1. Sorry, we'll see if he stays as passive as he was in game 1, Wink. But being on the Nautilus this time around, I do hope that he can actually find some solid engages. There's a lot of annoying mobility, so Nautilus is gonna try and put a stop to that. As if it's just the Lee Sin for Tien, why don't pick it at 4? It's gonna be Nocturne. I still kind of feel the same way, but it is very exciting, and we'll see what Tien can actually get done once he does have that paranoia online.
I'll come in with a little cope from a jungle perspective. You know, if EDG had actually locked in the Poppy, I would be less inclined to lock in Lee Sin. And it almost seemed like, okay, that's why they wanted to wait it out. They wanted to make sure that there is no way that they could lock down a super slippery champion like Lee Sin. But then, you know, like you said, it seems a little anticlimactic to save R5 for a Nocturne pick that would have just fared just as well in the draft in R4.
I'm gonna be honest. Who's Nocturne diving into, you know, to make things hard, to make things scary? Even the thought, like, the lights go off, there's a Rakan, ooh, there's an Ahri, ooh, right? Like, the only thing here that makes sense is maybe a huge Gnar ult, right? Like a big flank comes out from Gnar, and that's what really sets up a team fight. But otherwise, a lot of pretty decent self-peel just from the Shurima shuffle out of Xiaohu. So yeah, or rather out of Angel. So I am kind of as concerned as I was for EDG in their drafting game 1. Now for Weibo, a lot of burden of execution has been put on them via this draft, and EDG can kind of just pilot this game in a very standard fashion. They kind of have the textbook definition of, you know, a competitive League of Legends composition. Solid front line, consistent engage through Nautilus, mixed damage, a reset just for the love of the game through Viego. This is good. This is as bog standard as it gets for EDG. So yeah, Weibo a lot on their plate moving into this game number 2, and they're the ones that put themselves in this position. Let's remind ourselves.
Right.
So let's see how they navigate this.
And the big thing for me, Jamada, that I was waiting for from EDG to put together with their composition is how or where is burst damage a guaranteed pick. Without seemingly very hard disruption from the side of Weibo Gaming. And then with a lot of bursts and a guaranteed pick, that's one reset always guaranteed for the side of EDG. Now, we might have... Okay, we're back. And I see on my program, oh, we have level 1 engage. Looks like we had a ignite from Wink. Just trailing behind Weibo Gaming. Just gonna check in with my casting partner, Jamada. Are we back?
I am here. Yeah,
okay,
we're good. On our side, for clarity, we did have a brief second of losing our feed. Just the way our system is set up has resulted in that. But we are back, and I don't think it actually affected the stream itself. So all good there. But yeah, every trade's early on. Heal out of Hong, ignite out of Wink, and again, just looking to really fight for this level 2. It seems like EDG are probably going to get the better of this as Weibo just look to yield for the time being.
I'm just happy that we're not in the lane swap scenario. Oh my goodness, dredge line mechanics and hitbox. That's some BS, as EDG are going to get a nice little barrier from Light there. And EDG now setting themselves up maybe for a dive if Xiaohao can find the route. But it would be pretty dangerous task to ask for, especially with Assum already chunked below 50% HP.
Yeah, well, the problem is Tien's playing Nocturne, not really a champion right now, and Light and Hong are still kind of level 1 right now. Tien is making his way down here. Problem is, again, his bottom lane are just so weak in comparison. It's going to be very difficult to play. Tien can maybe get his hands on this Gromp. I'm surprised Wink isn't walking around to just play nuisance to get him off this.
Tien can finish this Gromp without smiting, and if he can walk on over and clip it, but it looks like he's not going to have enough time. But this is what you want to be doing in a jungle scenario. You know, if you are faced with an invade, drop the ego. Just know that you don't have bot lane prio to fight for your buff. Be thankful in the fact that you at least get your other 2 camps, and you're not completely denied out of the game, as now Xiaohao Gonna try to walk over to the top side of the crab, using that top lane priority to get one of these objectives for himself.
Yep. Jungle freedom for Xiaohao. Always the pleasure of having priority lanes early on. ZDZ is going to get a pretty nice trade here onto Breathe. And trying to stay in melee range and keep it going, of course, that's the frustration of laning against the Gnar in the early stages. If you get a trade onto him in melee, in mini rather, then of course you kind of have to take the beating as you walk away as a melee champion. Does a good job and forces him back, understanding that Xiaohao could now be on the top side of the map, right? Doesn't want to stick around, be low HP, and then get dove by that Renekton Viego combo. Very, very difficult to avoid, and Tien still a little whiles away from being able to protect the top side.
Right. And for ZDZ, he's now set up the wave where it is pushing towards his side of the map. He has teleport advantage. He could establish a freeze with Xiaohao on his side of the map and really put Breathe in a difficult position where he would have to overextend. And like you pointed out, even though Gnar in range form can slowly harass a Renekton out, if you are ever too far forward and you fall behind this Renekton, there's nothing you can do for the rest of the laning phase.
Yeah, it does get very frustrating, right? Eventually we'll get to a point where you can start to neutralize the Renekton as this Gnar, but once that kind of situation occurs, it just gets really annoying. This is kind of the, point of frustration here for ZDZ, those kind of trades, right? Where you can't walk up into the face of the Gnar. As a stun comes through, double stun. Not going to be there. For a moment, thought in my head that Viego was waiting in that bush, but of course it was the Nocturne, so no real threats. These dredge lines have looked, well, they've looked like your standard Nautilus setup. As ZDZ,
sheesh.
I am surprised Tien continued to reset there as level 6 comes in. Maybe that's what they are worried about on the side of ZDZ.
It definitely looked like ZDZ was very diveable in that state, but then the Dominus comes online, and then the angle is no longer playable. But nicely done by Breathe to be able to regain a little bit of that lane control, force the TP out of ZDZ thanks to Tien and giving him a hover, and ensuring the safety despite Xiaohao being on the other side of the map. As now Xiaohao is pathing back towards top side, is going to be playing around that level 6 advantage that ZDC has on this Renekton and should guarantee prio for these Void Grubs.
Yeah, should do prio both lanes here around the objective. Weibo not super interested in picking up this dragon, and of course the bottom side priority looks the way it does for the time being. They're waiting for a wave to stack back in EDG. So maybe after the Wolves they'll go towards it, but they'll certainly be behind on tempo. Light wants this reset, and Raafaa, he's not basing in the best of places here. Wink.
And all the bases desynced. I mean, Hong will be able to at least stop Assum's damage, but Light is already forced to flash away. The Ignite is ticking down. It's going to get some chip damage back in, but that is both summoners gone off of Light's Varus, and Assum and Wink now putting themselves in a position to capitalize on the next all-in.
Yeah, they will now be able to hopefully find a complete lockdown here onto Light. Maybe Xiaohao gets involved on the play as well. No flash on Varus. Always feels quite scary in the early game. This dragon will be picked up though, in response to those grubs a moment ago. Again, still a little bit behind on tempo, but really not the worst thing in the world. As unlike last game where Weibo, in the early game, a lot of criticism around their dragon control at the very least. Not really picking them up with that Kalista lane. Still able to do it here, despite, honestly, being pretty heavily pressured in this 2v2 down in the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, just taking advantage of the fact that Xiaohao has put a lot more of his resources and priority in playing through topside, and I think this is where a little bit of that, old camaraderie between Xiaohao and ZDZ on, previous rosters together has come into play, where, in game one, they weren't playing the most proactive champions together that could, skirmish heavily in the early stages of the game. And as we jokingly alluded to, maybe ZDZ asking for a champion that allows him to actually fight for his life instead of the Udyr pick that we got in game one. And already ZDZ and Xiaohao starting to defend for themselves. But we're still now a couple of minutes and a half away from the second rotation of Grubs. No real action has sparked between these two teams outside of the bot lane skirmishes. Xiaohao will find Hong, but he should be able to dash away once he gets in range to Light to battle dance to safety, as Xiaohao really wanted that.
Yeah, it was just a little bit slow on that heartbreak pull of Xiaohu. Angel
Is Angel in trouble?
Oh,
Xiaohu. One more, like you said, at Jamada. First blood goes over to Xiaohu.
Yeah, I mean, clean pickup there for Xiaohu. Not sure how it transpired, but I'm sure the observers will highlight that for us shortly. We got the look at the bottom side there. Xiaohao was just barely short on that Heartbreaker. But what that play and the resulting sequences then given us is this play onto light, no flash, remember.
I'm not sure if the depth charge was ill-advised, because now Tian gets a free engage onto Assum, who's forced to flash over the wall. Paranoia lights turned out, and Wink has got nowhere else to go. And Xiaohao, remember, he used the Heartbreaker earlier, so he would have to flash if things get dicier. Here comes the bullet time. It will push Weibo Gaming back, and that does preserve Xiaohao from having to use his flash.
Yeah, Xiaohao holds onto his flash. A play, a little bit awry there for EDG. Again, wanted to capitalize on light not having that flash summon spell, but Tien in the area. I'm hoping this is going to be the replay for this 1v1. So it's Angel that engages in here, doesn't get the shuffle off, gets hit by the charm, and then there's just enough damage over time here from Xiaohu. Both sides of the Q connect on the next rotation, and yeah, W as well from the Spirit Rush, of course, and one more auto finishes up Angel. Not much to talk about there, just very overzealous from Angel as this play down here from Wink. Again, looking to capitalize on light, but the problem is Xiaohao is just not close enough, focused on that blue buff. A little bit too split apart, EDG here. The idea, good execution, not so much, and unfortunately Weibo were there in the area to capitalize.
Weibo Gaming, it's not a massive gold lead to run away with, and in fact, it's not even more than a couple hundred here, but it does mean that a few of the item breakpoints are accelerated in the hands of particularly Xiaohu and Tian, who are kind of tasked with making a lot of the plays here. Spirit Rush and Paranoia trying to dive onto what is now a flashless Assum could help catapult this lead for Weibo Gaming further into the mid game.
Yeah, it certainly could. I mean, the game state feels really good for Tian as for Weibo, as Tian has to walk away here from ZDZ. Does worry him enough and does sneak away this one grub, and I imagine that EDG will be able to secure the remainder. So it will be 5 for EDG, but the problem always lies in grubs that they are a win more objective. You do have to, you know, get onto the towers to be able to really push the advantage of getting these grubs early on. Whereas Weibo picked up the first dragon. They've had fairly decent setup around where this objective, when the objective has been concerned. So we'll see again if that's going to be too early pickups there. As Xiaohu, he's fishing for Angel, definitely feeling himself after that initial 1v1 in the mid lane. And EDG again really now have to make a hard decision on whether or not they want to give up this next dragon, with Xiaohao resetting right now, 30 seconds left on that dragon. It has to be for Triforce. It can't be for anything else, and it is. Okay. Maybe they can fight on that spike, but even in saying that, Xiaohu has the Malignance. There's no completed item for Angel. And Light right now, honestly, short of Assum finding a really big bullet time, I feel like Varus is always going to be a little bit more useful in an early skirmish just because of the Chains of Corruption and that single target potential of being able to blow up the first person that they find.
Yeah, it really does come down to how confident EDG are around Xiaohao finding that first reset, because, yeah, I mean, now we're getting a Nashor's completed by Angel just in time before this dragon fight, but still, as you called out, a lot of the CC pick potential is more favored towards Weibo Gaming, since key targets are down to Flash in Assum and Angel. And with Weibo Gaming being the first ones into the river, EDG have to, you know, have a leap of faith in venturing into the darkness, as the dragon is already secured by Tian, and Hong is just going to make sure that EDG cannot get in position to try and capitalize on a retreating Weibo Gaming, as they get everything they wanted and nothing really gained from the side of EDG. Weibo Gaming might favor a potential re-engage if they want to look for EDG, but just trying to push them away, as Xiaohu now pops the Spirit Rush. It's going to get the death charge guaranteed. Bullet time rips through. That's one reset for Xiaohao as he takes the body of Hong. We'll look for the grand entrance before looking for another Heartbreaker for it, as he wants to get onto Tian, but they pop the Paranoia, and he still had one more Spirit Rush charge out of Xiaohu, and they punish an overextended Xiaohao.
Yeah, Xiaohao just too eager to find another play, right? You lost the dragon, couldn't get, or found that first pick onto Hong, great. why look for more? Just take the initial 1-for-1. But EDG, I think, just kind of point to prove the frustration there of not being able to get in towards that dragon, right? We were speaking about the items, even though, of course, favorably for Weibo, as maybe Assum could be in trouble here.
He still has cleanse, but doesn't look like he's going to need it, as it would not have worked against knockups here, as Hong just delays what could have been a back, and the rest of Weibo Gaming will regroup. There's no more Void Grubs, but there's a Rift Herald spawning as we take a look back at the replay.
Yeah, so initial fight here, Xiaohu dashes away from that Judge Line, but then goes in twice, right? Finds Wink. The initial trade, you know, looks kind of alright for Weibo after they do pick up Wink, but then 1-for-1, sport. Okay, cool. Like, step away. Xiaohao, though, again, just too over-eager, and like you called out, Raafaa, Xiaohu still has that one charge of Spirit Rush available, and just uses it to close the gap on the target that's been Chains of Corruption. There's Xiaohao on this Herald as we come out of the replay. It looks like it will be EDG's objective to take, but Weibo, I think, kind of content. You look at the bottom side of the map, Xiaohu all alone on this bottom side tier 1. No one here to match him, no teleport available, so tower for Herald will be what the exchange ends up being. And even though, you know, EDG can just drop this Herald up here and make it a 1-for-1 in towers, it's still a much larger investment of time and resources out of EDG compared to Xiaohu, who can now just take a base, spend all of that gold he just got from this tower, and then come up here and maybe look for a bit of a play himself. He's actually got a deep teleport ward by that top tier 1. If you take a look at the map, but I don't even think Weibo are interested in looking for a counterplay that aggressive. They're just going to look for the mid-tier 1.
Yeah, if anything, they'll just stall the ability of EDG to rotate towards the mid lane, as Assum is the only person that can try and defend it, and he is not going to try his hand against Tian and Light, or at least in front of their faces. So that is a turret exchange between Weibo Gaming and EDG. The gold lead still remaining in Weibo Gaming's favor, now extended up by a solid 2,000. So still not a game-winning lead by any means, but definitely Weibo Gaming once again finding themselves in the driver's seat.
Yeah, definitely. They're the ones who it feels like are in control of the game. Again, though, I do just have to highlight EDG. Compositionally, it's really easy to pilot, man. You know, there's not really a lot of confusion. You know, it's a car in automatic. There's no manual, there's no clutch. That's kind of where Weibo are at right now, but executing it perfectly for the time being. As Breathe, I say that, it's gonna have to step away from this tier 1 on the bottom side. EDG collapse looks really scary. They will secure this tier 1, so a little bit of gold at the very least is going to be bounced back into Angel's pocket. But again, you take a look at the picture-in-picture. Xiaohu, he's cross-mapping immediately already. He's the one with 1 grab. He doesn't have 5, like EDG do. And he's just going to continue to grow out this lead. 1.6 thousand. He's probably going to have his second IM on this next reset as well because of that tower. So he's going to be really scary in this next fight in a minute's time. He's taking a reset now. And we'll see if he's got that second IM. The Storm Surge, I believe, is where he's going to go towards. And it's going to be very, very scary. Or Lichbane, rather. Really, really scary to deal with now in this next fight.
I love this. Such an aggressive build for Xiaohu. You know, after the Malignants, now you have an item that is going to give you even more lethal potential in going for these skirmish scenarios, the 1v1s, the pick scenarios where you go in, you get a charge of the Lichbane off of Spirit Rush, and then you just add that extra bit of damage to force a key target out of these fights. And with Dragon coming up in the next 20 seconds, if Weibo Gaming secure this, this sets them up to have Soul Point in a very rapid fashion, and that does put a timer on EDG's own hands, as Weibo Gaming now starting to get vision control. EDG have to be careful about how they enter.
Yeah, a lot of wards everywhere for Weibo, their side of the jungle as well. Complete information on where EDG are and could be in the event that they even lose control of the mid lane. They're looking for ZDZ, and ZDZ don't check the brush.
Don't do it, man.
No, he's fine. No one's actually waiting there anymore. No threat of an immediate charm. But Weibo could actually find themselves collapsing. These shallow wards might end up working out for Weibo here, as it's just a game of cat and mouse at the minute, and a hook's gonna come in and the lights are off.
Yes, sir. Xiaohu has been cut off, though, by Xiaohao, but he's able to Spirit Rush back to the safety of his team. Tian going in, immediately repelled by Angel's Emperor's Divide. And that is a Weibo Gaming jungler that has been chunked out completely of the fight. Weibo Gaming would have to fight without Tian by their side if they wanted to compete for this dragon, but it's burning down so fast. That's a solid win for EDG.
It's a very solid win for EDG. No threat of a Cloud Soul in 5 minutes time, Rad. Honestly, Cloud Soul on high key, all of these champions actually very, very scary to think about, right? Not being able to get away from Nocturne, Ahri being even faster with all the dashes, and need I really mention Rakan?
Yes, sir.
But does start off here with the dredge line and the supports finding each other, and of course Xiaohu off on the side. The initial engage from Tian is very, very potent onto Assum, right? A lot of chunk out damage, but again, the Emperor's Divide is such an easy to use tool in that kind of situation where it's just one person, and in this case Tian, who's already used the spell shield. The disengage is good, and the chunk out onto Weibo. If they're not able to all kind of be in unison, pick off that first target, that split off target, then the fights get really hard. And again, really just highlighting how easy it can be for EDG, even in a situation where it's not really a true front to back, right? Once they can reform in the middle of those fights to have their carries behind their tanks, life just gets super easy. So Weibo have to do their best to really break apart that teamfight formation.
True. And props to Xiaohao for marking Xiaohu on that left side, who didn't seem like Breathe was really in position to capitalize on the timing of Tian's engage with the paranoia, since he was in Mega Gnar form, but he was quite a ways away and pretty hard to clear that thick wall if you don't flash it properly. And for Weibo Gaming, it seemed like the engage was not really synced up. That being said, gold lead still in their favor. Xiaohu still kind of one of the main carries that we've been looking at so far that has been slowly accelerating his lead, and we still kind of have eyes on as the biggest threat to EDG's day and being able to ruin and tear apart this composition. But the fact that EDG were able to endure the most recent skirmish does give hope for their ability to come back in this scenario.
It does, and just to be able to stabilize, I think, is the important part, right? What's the word I'm looking for here? Out of sync, I suppose. Item completions. This 3,000 gold lead right now, as everyone is out on the map, is actually a significantly larger lead than you may be led to believe, because there's 2 item completions across the board for Weibo, whereas EDG, not a single person on their side has 2 items completed. So it is a very, very scary little section of time for EDG to be out on the map, but hopefully they can get some of those item completions in, especially Angel and Assum both have very expensive components with very small amounts of gold left over for completion, right? It's 1.5k-ish, I think, for Assum. For the remainder of that IE, maybe a little bit less. And then, of course, Angel is about 800 away from that Leandri in total gold. So once they get that gold spent, and they're back at 2-item parity, it feels good, but for the time being, they take a fight. EDG, on paper, should just be stronger.
And for EDG, Baron has spawned, and that's where they're keeping their eyes on. TM pulls the trigger, wants to look immediately for Xiaohao, forces him out of the fight, and that does isolate Wink for the taking. Weibo Gaming pick off the straggler from EDG's side. They guarantee the numbers advantage, and now Curiosity will pique Weibo Gaming's interest if they want to just turn for the Baron, but they are using EDG's own lack of vision to their advantage, trying to bait them into walking into the jungle so that they can get another guaranteed pick without having to start up that objective. But it looks like they're not going to go for it. Just going to take the pick and take the base.
Nice bit of discipline there from Weibo. A lot of teams would have maybe turned around to have immediately gone towards that Baron, but kind of recognized that if you put yourself in the pit, then all of a sudden it's a bullet time, it's a diving in Azir, it's a lot of AoE damage, and then the threat of resets, of course, from Viego. So just take the pick and walk away with it. Dragon's up in a minute's time, so just go and look for that fight instead. I think that makes a lot of sense for Weibo. They're not on a hard timer, though. It would have been nice to have certainly tried to force the fight. Problem is, you use the paranoia and the quickness. It's very difficult to try and actually find a consistent re-engage as Wink is chunked out, and that's a really irritating timer because I'm not sure he's going to have enough time to go back, reset, and then be full HP for this dragon. We'll see if Weibo, just off that advantage alone, are going to be able to secure this next dragon. I guess he has red buff, so he's going to have a little bit of passive regen. But it's still a chunk that could be a little bit impactful considering he's a frontliner.
With his ulti coming back off cooldown, he might just give his life for the cause. Nice jump onto
Whoa.
ZDZ, and now this crocodile has been chunked out. That might just force the teleport out of ZDZ to rejoin the fight.
Yeah,
EDG
top side too.
gaining wave priority in the mid lane allows them to move into the river first for control, but as you called out, Breathe is putting pressure on the top side. He does not have teleport, so ZDZ has to answer. This is going to force a 4v4 potentially if ZDZ does not get room to TP and join the fight and create that advantage. Xiaohu trying to cut EDG off from the mid wave by catching it high, and EDG taking their time with the objective.
Yeah, they don't want to rush anything here. Weibo know they're in control of the map. And once this mid wave's gone, they can just kind of lean off Sentient towards the dragon. He's got the gap closure of the paranoia if something happens nearby, but EDG are actually going to kind of call this bluff a little bit. Hover over towards the Baron, and it's actually a place where Weibo don't necessarily have a whole bunch of vision right now. EDG, I'm not sure they actually know that.
Ooh,
Still,
ZDZ. He's TPing. He's looking for the flank angle, and Weibo Gaming, once Breathe calls out that information, they have to immediately ditch the dragon. It resets, but Xiaohao catches it, so is able to catch a little bit of the leash that Weibo Gaming gave them over to them. This is going to be second dragon acquired. Once again, Weibo Gaming denied Cloud Soul point.
Yeah, they are. And it's a good couple of pickups here for EDG. And again, time afforded to them to ramp up, to scale, and give them potentially an easier time in these 5v5s. But again, Weibo execution has been fantastic. The side lane play so far this game has been stellar. And I mean, it's not like their little exchanges and skirmishes haven't been either. ZDZ rather, it's going to make use of these 5 grubs. Doesn't have a massive wave to work with, but it's still going to get a pretty sizable chunk out of this tower. As the next wave arrives, he might actually be able to finish it before Breathe is able to interrupt him, and I think that's going to be the case. Double dash out to safety. That's 700 gold into Renekton's back pocket just to recover some of that gold difference. But again, not to say it's just a Renekton, because I think throughout a lot of this year, we've been proven wrong time and time again about how powerful Renekton's team fighting can be. It's just that we haven't really seen ZDZ offer that opportunity to really demonstrate how much power can be found with that crocodile in the back line.
Yep. If you find the flank, Flash Empowered Stun can just ruin an 80 carries day. And especially you have that shield breaker. Even if Light popped the barrier in time, that will not do him that much good. And for ZDZ, just having gold on his side to have that threat. Wink flashing forward, catching Light on a ward. That's a worthy flash all day, every day of the week. Now that Light might be exposed in this next fight.
Yeah, big deal. Really, really big deal. We'll see if, again, if EDG can really look to capitalize on a flash like that being down. So far, Light is deathless, and his positioning has generally been pretty good. But again, yeah, just call out a position there. And it could make things a little bit awkward for him if EDG actually continue to look for these proactive plays. As it's exactly what they're doing right now. Hunting on this side lane. They know that Weibo have been a very, very big nuisance throughout the game on that. But they're not going to be able to find Xiaohu for the time being. And it's a very, very low kill game, all things considered, compared to last game where...
Yes, sir.
Right about now, actually, the game was ending. It was Weibo putting the finishing touches on game number 1, but this time around a lot more business end, I suppose. Can't really find the opportunity to pick up the Baron. That pick onto Assum hasn't been given to them on a silver platter like it was around 40 minutes ago.
Yeah. And I'm not really sure if there is incentive for either team to rapidly close the game out on either side, since you have some, at least for EDG, this Azir is going to get stronger and stronger the later the game goes on, and he will just be a team fighting monster. For Weibo Gaming, I mean, maybe you can argue that because this is Poke Varus, you have more incentive to close out this game, as a potential pick on the ZDC still has flash available, so he shouldn't be in any real trouble, as Breathe just chunking him out, putting some pressure on this side lane turret. He does have teleport, so if they want to shift back on over to the top side of the map for that Baron, they do have that option.
They do. It's been kind of the name of Weibo's game. ZDZ's being chunked out more and more. He just needs to survive until he has teleport, and even if he ends up losing this tier 2, it's fine. What you don't want to do is get caught by the chains of corruption over the wall.
Oh, and that's all it takes. Fog of War to the advantage of Weibo Gaming. They lock down ZDZ, force that pick, and now it's a 5-on-4 as they are going to push in this minion wave. Doesn't look like they're going to extend the lead anymore, but they have 40 seconds to set up the map to gain complete control of the Baron side of the map.
Yeah, they've got good waves in all 3 lanes. No control afforded to EDG, but Weibo are just going to take their time and they're going to reset. Pings are coming out on the top side of the map for EDG. I think they're worried about the potential of, you know, an immediate map open up towards the top side and the Baron being picked up. EDG, they spot someone in that brush with the sweeper, of course. But again, nothing's really going to come of that pick for Weibo in the grander scheme of things. It's just a bigger injection of gold through that tier 2. Now complete control of this top side. They know EDG have no vision. And this is where things get really scary if Hong can get into a flank angle where he can find his way onto Assum or onto Angel, force out a flash. Or even still, even if he forces out that flash, set up for maybe Tien or Xiaohu to find that follow-up.
The big question, though, is do Weibo Gaming drop priority for this Baron to look for the Dragon, as the Chain of Corruption barely goes wide on Assum, but he used the cleanse, had enough movement speed to dodge out of that pick tool from Light, but Assum has been chunked out, and it doesn't seem like EDG are really in a position to just trade objective for objective. They're rather concerned of letting this Baron go for free, as ZDZ tanks up a charm and a full combo from Xiaohu. The Baron is reset. They turn off the lights. Hong was waiting for that flank angle, and the rest of the front line overextend. Wing falls. Tien looks for Assum, but Assum stands tall behind Angel, and the bullet time starts ripping through the front line of Weibo Gaming, and now the resets are coming in. Xiaohao taking control of the mini Gnar. It's up to Xiaohu and the rest of Weibo Gaming to make sure that EDG can't find any more resets and prevent a potential Baron take, but with a jungler on their side and no smite contest from Weibo Gaming, that should be the 3rd dragon for EDG.
It's a messy fight from both sides, honestly. I think Weibo a little bit too scattered, but also EDG, CDZ caught a little bit too far forward. I mean, it's just kind of the target selection there from Weibo. And I mean, EDG just had to be a little bit slower, let Assum, you know, actually lifesteal up off that wave. But this is what I'm talking about, this split focus from Weibo in the end that really is their undoing. Xiaohu's trying to find an angle on one side, Weibo on the other, and then it's this overcommittal from Tien, which kind of leads the rest of Weibo astray into that bullet time and leads us to a 2v2, which really could have very easily been maybe a 2-for-1 worst case for Weibo. Very fortunate that there was no angle for a chase down on EDG, as Hong just barely dodges away from that dredge line. And as we come back out, the one positive that I can really draw from both sides here is that carries actually maintained their flash, right? Angel, Assum, Xiaohu, Light all still have their flash available, so not over the top vulnerable to this next play that could unfold.
And I have to call back to something you alluded to at the end of the draft phase before this game started, is Tien is having a lot of difficulty making these solo dives work on the Nocturne. It doesn't seem like he really has anyone that is joining him on these dive missions, because the only other person that could look for that realistically is Hong on this Rakan, but his job has been shoring up the front line and CCing them for the rest of his damage dealers to deal with. And so Tien is doing all he can, I guess, to disrupt the back line, but he hasn't really had any success in either pulling off successful assassinations or really deterring EDG's carries from getting a lot done in these fights.
Oh, I take that back. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it was one of those things that, you know, you see a Nocturne, and especially in the context of, this was an R5 Nocturne, right? This wasn't like, you know, an early Nocturne and the composition was built around it. It was like the comp was locked in. And Tien said, yeah, Nocturne looks great here. So it has definitely been a little bit of a struggle on his end. Though, as we say that, speaking of struggles, EDG are struggling to lock down Breathe, and he is going to pick up that tower. He even still got the gold for damaging it. So, wow, 400 gold in his back pocket and more pressure onto the side of EDG as, yet again, Weibo, you know, not eager to pull any kind of trigger here. Force out a teleport maybe from ZDZ. Just, yeah, take the slow route and reset. They're at 4 items now on their carries. Significantly ahead of EDG at this point in the game. As, despite that fact, EDG happily, and I'd say brazenly, start this Baron. Tien's in the area. Breathe is in the bottom side. He has TP, but like, why even pull it unless he's gonna have Mega? And he will. Lights are off, Raafaa. Let's go.
Paranoia from Tien. He goes into the pit. Who takes the Baron? It's Tien that steals it. And now, as long as they can stop the recall of EDG, Breathe can just finish the game by himself. Weibo Gaming don't have to overcommit. They just have to continue corralling EDG in this river, but they have the numbers advantage even without Breathe in that Baron fight at all. And that just seemed too damn easy for Weibo Gaming to pull the wool over EDG's own eyes. GG, well played. A clean 2-0 sweep for Weibo Gaming.
It's just a complete disaster. It's worst case there for EDG. Going for the Baron again. They were down that one item. It's just the worst. It's a frustrating moment there from them. But it felt like they were kind of at their wits' end. I do feel as though if Weibo won one more fight anyway, it would have just been an additional fight on top into a game win. EDG, I think, maybe just recognizing that, go for the Hail Mary, and yeah, unfortunately lose out big time.
Yeah, and if it wasn't the surmounting pressure in the team fights starting to go more towards EDG or Weibo Gaming's way, I should say, it was that split push pressure that both Breathe and Xiaohu were putting on both of the side lanes throughout the game. And I think once EDG sent 2 members for Breathe, got absolutely nothing out of it, I wouldn't be surprised if the comms were like, all right, screw it, guys. Just flip the Baron. Let's see what happens. We're done with this game. And, you know, for a relatively new roster coming together, you know, aside from Wink being the returning member on EDG, I think it's understandable if the team just got frustrated and said, guys, let's just send it. Let's see what happens. And, you know, while this does mean that their Demacia Cup run is over, you know, at least it's a learning lesson for the upcoming 2025 season.
Yeah, I mean, look, good showing in the groups here today, definitely falling short. But I feel like falling short to a roster like Weibo's here is no major shame by